Hey everybody, it's Kate.
And Devin.
And this is a mini MedCrimes
bonus episode.
What's up?
Hi.
We missed you.
I missed you all.
As per usual.
Here we are.
I always miss you guys when we're away.
Yep. So what we're going to kind of do is we just wanted to, we've talked so much about RaDonda Vaught and how it's our first case that we have not, where it was happening live as we were covering it.
Was.
Where we didn't have all the details, court documents, conviction, and then sentencing. So we just wanted to tie it all up in a little bow today and talk about her sentencing hearing.
Wrap it up in a neat little bow, if you will.
Tiny little, nice, big, cute little bow.
Like a big bow.
A big bow.
Yes.
Yeah. But before we get into it, Kate told me she has something to say and she won't tell me what it is.
So
she said I had to wait till we were on the air. So
it's
I'm a little
really
like,
funny. So I was chatting on Instagram, like DMing with someone on Instagram, and it was Devin had sent me a message on Instagram and was like, hey, we should look into this guy, like sent me an article essentially. And we do that to each other all the time. We like send each other links and articles about like new cases we might cover. And I was like, wow, that's so interesting. I was like, you should do that. And this person was like, what? I was like, yeah, it has Devinism written all over it. You should definitely do that. And they were like, but how would I get to you? They were so polite. They were like, that sounds great. I would love to, but how will I get to you? How will this work? And then I looked at the last name and was like, this is not my Devin. This is a different Devin. And so, you know who you are. I'm so sorry I did that to you.
She thought you were me.
I thought you were her.
That's hilarious.
It was great.
All of us Devin's families are pretty cool.
Yeah,
all Devin
true.
people, but yeah.
So that was a funny way to start my day the other day.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And we also have some Patreons real quick.
Yeah.
So our new Patreons, Kaylin.
Hi, Kaylin.
Hi, Kaylin. We love you. Thank you for your support. You're
Yay.
the best.
Jennifer Mauricio.
Jennifer Mauricio. Thank you so much.
That's a cute name.
And finally, we have Eric and Sarah Olson. You guys
Hi.
are awesome.
I think you're our first. I'm on the assumption that you're a couple. So you're our first couple Patreon, right?
Yay, thanks guys.
Hey.
Thanks to both of you.
Welcome to our family.
Yes.
Our Patreon family is growing.
It really is.
So Kate and I were thinking it's about time we do another giveaway.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, we're hitting milestones.
So if you want to become a Patreon, go ahead and join.
If you want to get on the next giveaway.
Yep, we're going to give away a tote bag.
And I mean, can we say what you said about each episode, uploading it?
Yeah,
right?
so each Patreons are now going to get all future content uploaded so that they can listen through the Patreon website completely ad-free, which is awesome. Yay!
Awesome.
All right, Devin, you got this. Devinism.
Let's take it away.
It's raining Devin in this basement.
It's a Devinism,
It's
however.
a Devinism.
We have both.
I'm going to do a quick spot check. Hold on,
okay.
sorry.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's a Devinism only because I was like, Kate, we have to close this out. And so I looked up some stuff. But we've both, I'd say this is the first case where we really contributed 50-50.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah,
1,000%.
Yeah.
Been very passionate about it. It's been huge in the healthcare world.
It's been huge. It's all anyone heard about for like really a while. And, now that she's been sentenced, I think we just really wanted to kind of like close
it out.
the chapter.
Yes.
Yeah, close the chapter.
Which I think RaDonda's very happy about too.
Oh.
That the chapter's finally closed.
I think most of us are pleased with the outcome.
And Charlene's family as well.
They never wanted, I don't think they ever really wanted anything bad to happen to RaDonda.
No, they didn't.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of it that was in the media too, and along with some of what we had gotten from people was, well, what about the patient?
Well, exactly.
We're doing all this talk about the patient, well, or about RaDonda, but what about the patient?
I completely
agree. And I think that happens a lot in trials, in especially trials that are getting a lot of attention. Think about like O.J. Simpson trial. You know what I mean? It was like there's all this focus on did he really do it? Did he not? And then it's like, do you forget about Nicole? You forget about the victim in the case.
Exactly.
So it was also brought up that Charlene's family wasn't exactly they were like, we've never actually heard her apologize.
Oh, okay.
At least directly to them. Did she not directly apologize to them? Where she's talking about a lot about taking responsibility, but where's the apology?
Sure.
So this sentencing hearing was the first time that we really got to hear from RaDonda, because she didn't testify in the trial.
That's right.
As a lot of defendants don't. But so her sentencing was a time for us to really hear her out in the courtroom, outside of, interviews and things that we've seen in the media. So for those that don't know, Friday, May 13th was her sentencing. I loved when I was looking at stuff. I didn't make up the purple thing. That was legit.
That was real? Okay.
That was legit.
I
was looking at a lot of media photos. I was looking at a lot of media photos, and people were wearing shirts with the nursing emblem.
Oh,
I am RaDonda. They were purple. There was purple banners everywhere. It was like, yep. So I was like, sweet. I didn't make that up. I got it from somewhere.
She didn't just make it up, guys.
So in the first time that we get to hear from her, she spoke to her family. She spoke to Charlene's family. So she apologized to the family. She also apologized that if the discussion of the systemic hospital problems and the danger of criminalizing a nurse for those mistakes took away some of the attention from Charlene's death, she was apologizing for that as well. So not also just apologizing for what she did, but apologizing for some of the attention being taken away from the death of their family member and brought into the systemic hospital issues and criminalizing a nurse for something that she had no intention to do.
And I think it's not our intention either by, doing an episode or several episodes actually now focusing on RaDonda and, what happened with this fatal medication error. And we've been saying from the beginning, that there was clear fault in what she did.
Yeah, and she said it too.
And she said it too. And that's the thing about RaDonda is that, from the second it happened, she took full responsibility and has never, ever, ever tried to get out of or to minimize the impact that this has had on Charlene's family.
Absolutely.
And obviously Charlene. She's never, ever tried to minimize that.
Nope.
And so we don't want to minimize that either. And we really, really feel for her family in this situation because I can't imagine the position that they're in right now.
No way. So quoting her words, she said, "I'm sorry that this public outpouring of support for me has caused you to continue to live this over and over. No one has forgotten about your loved one. No one has forgotten about Miss Murphy. We're all horribly, horribly sorry for what happened. Saying I'm sorry doesn't seem like enough, but you deserve to hear that and know that I'm very sorry for what happened." So finally, the family at least gets to hear face-to-face with RaDonda just that apology that they felt that they never got.
It was very well worded by her.
Yeah.
I feel like
she's always
so
spoken
genuine.
very eloquently.
Yes. Yeah.
She's also, and she's poised herself in a respectful manner. She's held herself just very well. She's carried herself
totally
that way.
Yeah.
So another thing that we got to hear her speak to the judge. It was Judge Smith who was the one to decide what her quote unquote fate would be, right? Which again, also not, this case was so controversial in the fact that RaDonda's sentencing, her fate was going to impact or is going to impact the healthcare field, which we've said that all along. What's going to happen to the future of nursing if we have our first nurse who made a mistake is now a criminal? So there was a lot of talk between the prosecution and the defense going back and forth on the defense quoting for leniency, the prosecution saying, well, no, because of this, everything that has happened, showing all these reasons why she should not have leniency, the number of errors that were involved in that. So again, we got to hear from RaDonda, and there was something that she said in this that I was like, again, the way, like, she just says stuff that I'm like, wow.
Yeah. She gets
it. And I'll say it. I'll bring, it's the very last line of her quote here that I'm going to read. And it was just like, man. So she says to the judge, so when she gets to speak to the judge before she's sentenced, she says, "It's not an easy task for me to stand here in front of you and in front of Miss Murphy's family, knowing the 4.5 years they have suffered since this, and ask for your leniency. This sentencing is bound to have an effect on how they proceed both in," so she's talking about, here, the next sentence is about like how the medical field will proceed.
Gotcha.
She expresses how she's no longer a threat. She's not a threat to make this mistake again because she will no longer ever treat as a nurse, and she will never be a nurse again. Her sentencing, whatever it may be, is bound to have an effect on how the healthcare will proceed in reporting medical errors, medication errors, and raising concerns if they see something. They feel that if they see something that they feel needs to be brought to someone's attention, whether it's, about pharmacy stuff again, like the system, the Epic system,
right.
the failures that were there, or maybe a poor practice of another nurse.
Right.
The fate of what happens here, is this going to happen to me?
Exactly.
I worry this is going to have a deep impact on patient safety. The last thing any doctor or nurse wants to do is cause any patient harm. We want to do things in a way that protects them.
Right.
So this is where I was like, oh, girlfriend, it's a difficult situation to try and express how I feel, how this affects healthcare, and also what is appropriate in the justice system.
Right.
They operate very differently.
Yes, they do. Exactly.
So she's bringing her concerns about healthcare, which has been expressed all along. But then in that last statement, she acknowledges the justice system and how they have to do how the justice system operates.
Right,
and
exactly.
It was like, oh, girlfriend, you just keep getting me.
I know.
Like, she's acknowledging the importance of both pieces.
So true. It's so
right?
true.
Like,
Yep,
and then
the
she's so true. They do operate differently.
It's so, the two are so separate and such totally separate
when
animals.
Deaths happen in the healthcare, we've seen lawsuits, malpractice suits. Things go that way because we've made mistakes that have ended in patient harm.
Right.
But we're not criminals.
Exactly.
And so it's like, just, they do operate so differently.
Right.
And now that you have the first time that it's crossed over from a mistake, but then she's like, okay, so now I am part of the justice system and I have to acknowledge how the justice system operates. And she respects that. Yes. And I was like, oh, this girl, she's wonderful.
Good for her. Yeah, I know. She's really, like you said, just carried herself in such a way through all of this. And it's the matter of intent. And how she obviously did not intend for any harm to come to Charlene or anybody that day. And it was just a absolute cascade of system failures plus a lot of negligence on her end that led to this. And, there are other, situations wherein someone dies that aren't necessarily, a healthcare provider or a nurse or someone caring for someone. But like we said in the second episode that we talked about this, when a parent is on autopilot and leaves their child in the back of the car, obviously they did not intend to hurt that person, but they made a huge mistake, a hugely regrettable mistake that they have to live with for the rest of their lives, wherein someone died.
But I think the difference there, too, in the way when that parent is on autopilot and the unfortunate circumstance happens there, the key here is that RaDonda is not able to make the same mistake again.
Well, that's true. She's removed herself from that situation.
Well, it's by never having, even by never having a nursing license again.
That's true.
She's never able to make that mistake again.
That's true.
Whereas, unfortunately, with a parent, do they have other children? Is there other people that they're driving?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So the chance of that recurring again
that's so true.
is greater. Whereas in this instance, she will never be an RN giving any type of medication to an impaired adult ever again.
And even before she was asked to, even before she was given any disciplinary action whatsoever, it took them a year for her to face any disciplinary action whatsoever.
And in that year,
she was cleared.
Yeah.
And she was told to go ahead and keep being a nurse.
Right.
And she removed herself from the bedside. She said absolutely not. And she took an administrative role where she had no patient contact.
So the sentence for RaDonda, so she had the 2 counts that she was found guilty on. One was the abuse of an impaired adult.
Right.
And then the other one was negligent homicide. Originally, the charge was reckless homicide, but it was lowered in severity by the jury to negligent homicide. So each one came with their own different time frame of sentencing and what the minimum was. One was a minimum of 2 years to a certain maximum, and then again, I don't have all the legal numbo jumbo, but and then the other charge had a minimum of 3 years.
I gotcha.
And then you and I had talked like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean it has to be a total of 5? Because there was,
Right.
we
Yeah,
had
did
that
have
conversation.
question.
So RaDonda did receive leniency in her sentencing. She received a minimum 3 years probation. So she's not serving jail time.
Yay.
She is not serving jail time. And then there's another key piece here that I'll get to in a minute. But so she's serving the probation for both counts. So she had probation so she received 2 years probation for one of the counts and 3 years probation for the other account. And so instead of 5 years probation, they're not consecutive, they're running concurrent.
Gotcha.
So she's serving, so the first 2 years of her 3-year sentence is probation for both counts. And then the last year is for the other count that had a little bit of a longer sentencing, which I think was the negligent homicide.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of how that works. And so then the other key piece here that the defense was asking for, that the prosecution was like, absolutely not, she does not deserve this, was the diversion.
Right.
And so the diversion,
That's ridiculous.
so the diversion here is that basically when her probation is done, she can apply to have her record clean.
Right.
Or I don't know if she has to apply, but the judge granted the diversion. So
Okay.
that might already be part of it. That basically her felony record, she's got 2 felony charges, 2 felonies on her background. They're going to be gone.
Right.
She's a first-time offender. She has no possible way of making these again.
Right.
So her record is going to be clean.
Good.
Which is huge.
That is huge.
So
she can move
she's-
on with her life.
Yes.
A little bit.
Yes.
This can be behind her at some point in time.
I watched a taping of the judge giving the sentencing, and a lot of that was article this, legislature stature, blah blah blah, 119, all this like article stuff that she has to be so official. And I've never listened to anybody's sentencing before. I've never, or have been in a courtroom, so it was just like the whole time I'm like, get on with it, come on. It was like a 20-minute video.
Right,
and I was like, come on, Judge Smith,
I don't
let's
care
go.
about the article numbers.
Yes,
Give me
but
the
I
good
get how
stuff.
she has to explain how the court came to
exactly.
the
Yeah, she has
decision,
to. Yep.
and evaluating all the evidence. So it was really interesting, and watching RaDonda the entire time as the judge is speaking, and she's keeping herself together, but you could see the shakes.
Oh,
she's
yeah.
visually almost like tremors.
Oh, that's fucking good.
And then at the end of the video, Charlene's family, I saw a quick clip of them. They didn't show happiness. They didn't show disappointment in the sentencing. It was just like, it's done.
Yeah.
A couple of the family members testified that Charlene wouldn't have wanted her to have jail time.
Yeah.
Her son didn't want her to have jail time. I think
Right.
the only person that was just like, yes, give her the max was Charlene's husband.
Wow, yeah.
He, but even the son said, you just have to know my dad. That's how my dad is,
Yeah.
and whatnot. But the rest of the family was like, this is not what we ever wanted.
No.
So I think they were just like, I'm not going to say that they were happy, because they still lost their loved one.
Well, no.
And they're still grieving
But they
out of
also
all
want to
this.
move on with their
Yes.
life a little bit.
So they quickly left the courtroom,
Good.
and they were just like, okay, we got our answer. It's time to move on.
Time to go.
And after they left the courtroom, Charlene just puts her head down on the table. Not Charlene, excuse me, RaDonda.
RaDonda
put
does.
her head down on the table and just takes like a moment to herself, and she just lets it out.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, it was so emotional to watch.
Oh,
She just
wow.
lets it all out. I think relief of it's done.
Yes.
I'm not facing jail time.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully the healthcare system won't be too affected, because
Right.
I was granted leniency.
Yes.
And also just like, whew,
Phew.
I can breathe.
It's over, and there's hope for the future for me.
Move on. Yes.
That's
So she's
crazy.
just got supervised probation, however the state of Tennessee works
Yep.
with that program. And then in 3 years, it's gone. Her record is wiped clean. If she needs a background check for something, it's not going to come up.
Right.
So that was the best ending that I think RaDonda could have asked for, the healthcare system had wanted.
And Charlene and her family, like
Yes,
they said, they
yes,
never wanted any of
yes.
this. For
They
RaDonda.
really did not seem vindictive.
Well, that's the thing, and there's no reason to be vindictive, because it was a medication error, and these happen every single day.
Yep.
And Charlene, obviously did not deserve what happened to her.
Yeah.
And it was awful, and her family having to go through all of this was awful. But it was a medication error, and these things happen every day.
The last piece that I wanted to touch upon is, now that the sentencing is over, it's like, okay, she's speaking out to the public a little bit. And she had gotten, it was a Nightline interview that appeared and a little bit appeared on GMA. And so she was asked questions, and they kind of just asked her, like, at that moment that she realized the mistake, they were like, what could you describe? And she's just basically like, when I just saw that vial and connected the dots of what I did,
I can't even.
she's like, my heart just sank to the floor. She's like, it basically fell out of my body and sank to the floor. And she's like, it's a feeling I cannot even describe to you.
I literally can't.
No, I can't
imagine.
Either. I can't either.
Wow.
So, and that's part of why she held herself accountable from the beginning. She asked if, she was asked if she felt like a scapegoat. And she said, well, I think the healthcare world feels that I am the scapegoat. And she's like, in the healthcare system, you don't blame. You don't point fingers. You figure out what else you can do. And in this situation, she was being put to blame for the entire thing.
Yes.
And she said, I don't want to say that I'm to blame. I am responsible, but I'm not,
Right. There were it was a multi-system failure.
And then she was asked as far as how does she feel moving on? How has she felt when she's tried to move on? And she said she feels guilt with any kind of happiness. So anytime she feels any kind of happiness about something, she goes, I feel guilty for feeling
deserve
happy.
this. Right. Yep.
Like, do I deserve to feel happy right now when Charlene is dead?
Yeah.
Yes. And her family is still grieving.
Oh,
so she feels guilty for any kind of happiness. And hopefully as the future moves on, that she's always going to feel that in the back of her head. Like she said, Charlene and her family is going to be the patient that stays with her for the rest of her life.
Yeah, that's never going to leave her. Yeah.
But hopefully she comes to feel that it's okay to be happy.
Right.
And I have, based on what I've read, like Charlene wants that for her too.
That's what it sounds like. Or she would want that for her.
And the very last question that she was asked, and it just, again, the woman carries herself so well.
Yes, she does.
The last thing that she said, again, takes the responsibility. And so she said, I will never be the same person. It's really hard to be happy about something without immediately feeling guilty.
Right.
She could still be alive with her family. Even with all the system errors, the nurse is the last to check.
That's true.
And so that sentence right there where she's like, given all of this, I was the last to check. And I didn't,
She didn't. She didn't do the five rights.
Right.
They
keep showing the picture of the cap of the vial.
Oh yeah, with
the orange circle with the warning.
Paralytic agent.
And she's like, I didn't check. And she's like, that split second is going to stay with me forever. But and so when she's saying, even with all the system errors, basically from Vanderbilt, right, all of the errors there from Vanderbilt and other hospitals throughout the country, the nurse is the last to check.
That's true. That's true. That's
so she goes right down to the last second. It's still
yeah, it's still me
on me. So I just wanted to speak and close it up on RaDonda's last words, because we've never been able to hear her speak outside of, a few interviews that we've caught.
Exactly.
She really stayed quiet throughout the whole thing until the verdict. But I think she wanted this part over with too before she really spoke out about it.
100%. Yeah.
I think this just kind of closes the story out. We'll see what happens with the healthcare industry. There was a multitude of support outside the courthouse for her.
Good.
There was petitions. There was signs saying mistake does not equal murder.
Right.
2020 were heroes. 2022 were criminals.
We're criminals. Yeah.
A lot of that stuff. And so the support was huge, and it really just brought the whole healthcare field together. And I was kind of thinking about a time, it happened several years ago. And so I was rewatching the video of it this morning, just as far as how powerful the nursing community can be.
Yes. So true.
And I think I had asked you if you remember this, and you didn't. So when I had watched the video this morning, back several years ago, The View got into a very controversial thing about nurses. There was a Miss America pageant, and so this
I do remember.
Yes, so this girl, this girl had done for her talent competition. She came out in her scrubs with her stethoscope and just talked about how her talent is being a nurse. She didn't do a song and dance or whatever kind of routine as her talent. She's like, this is my talent.
Yep.
And so The View was criticizing that. We want to see, this isn't a talent. And then Joy Behar says, well, why is she wearing a doctor's stethoscope?
God, this killed me.
Killed
me back
that
in the
didn't
day.
kill just you.
Oh, God.
It was this whole thing. And
So much secondhand embarrassment for Joy.
Yes, the community really went after them.
Yeah.
And so it's just like there's several different examples of how the nursing community in the healthcare world is just huge. You know, the I think her name was Kelly, the beauty queen girl,
Yeah,
the
Kelly,
beauty pageant participant, whatever, that did that. She goes, you didn't just insult me, you insulted 3.6 other million nurses.
Yep.
Like,
Whoops, shouldn't have done that.
yeah. And so it's just, I have a little bit of hope now for the healthcare world that we're still going to work in.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's still a lot of fears that we have that I'm sure other people do.
Yep.
The judge fortunately did not set the precedent.
Right.
And, you know, well, she was very clear as far as your license has been stripped, which you and I had agreed with from the beginning.
Oh, yeah. From the beginning, I think
and
she
so the
should
judge,
not
she
be a
was very
nurse.
clear. She's like, your license is stripped. You've shown remorse. There's no point in
Why?
sentencing you
Exactly,
to jail. What
why?
good is it going to do?
It's only going to harm the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I myself and many other people were just like, okay, this is over.
Yep.
The best could have happened. And I love that it's going to be erased. You know,
Me too.
I love it that it's
For
going to be
her.
erased.
Yeah.
So that
everybody will be able to move on with their lives.
yes. Yeah.
That's good.
So that's my tiny little wrapped bow. RaDonda Vaught. I can't speak. RaDonda Vaught Part 3.
RaDonda Vaught Part 3. And all the interviews that Devin watched and all of the courtroom stuff, we will link all of that in the show notes.
You should, because it's good.
Yep. So
it's
just
good.
go to the show notes if you guys want to watch any of those, because they are all like really, really long, lengthy videos.
Her speech, RaDonda's speech
so
to the
valuable.
Judge and to the family. Everybody should see it.
Highly recommended.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yay.
that's it.
Okay.
That's it. This was a little mini bonus episode for everybody, but we'll still got to just let you know that if you want to reach out to us, you can look for us on Instagram at MedCrimes Podcast.
Send us a Twitter at MedCrimesPC.
Follow us on Facebook at MedCrimes Podcast.
Or if you wish to become a Patreon, you can visit us at www.patreon.com/MedCrimesPodcast. Also,
Yep.
do you have a crazy story? Is it medical in nature? Is it spooky? Is it hilarious? Is it unbelievable? We want to know about it.
Speaking of spooky,
Oh, God.
that last episode, Carl, it's still stuck with me.
That is the creepiest shit. My God. But if you guys have your own weirdo stories, we want to know about it. Medcrimes@gmail.com.
Thank you.
We love ya.